We are part of the Montgomery group, who organise food, drink and hospitality events. Myself, I've been doing it for about 11 years now, so I've worked in many different shows, but all of in the food and drink and hospitality sector. So yeah, delighted to be on this panel today to talk you through events in general, but also obviously Speciality and Fine Food Fair, which I know a lot of you all will know itself and would fit very well into. So
great, perfect, thank you. And Sanjay.
Hi there, I'm Sanjay. I'm from a company called Spice Kitchen. Believe it or not, we're a spice company. We've been around 10 years now, God. And yeah, we make gift sets. We're a spice maker, so we make spice blends, but we also make these kind of gift sets of spices. And what started as my mum's silly retirement hobby has kind of expanded into what we are now. And we even hand make these kind of sari gift wraps for the tins just to make them unique. And yeah, done lots of trade shows and continuing to do lots. So yeah, quite experienced.
Perfect, great, excellent. So Nicola, maybe if we start with you for any producers that perhaps don't know Specialty and Fine Food very well, or perhaps are keen for kind of some key insight into it. Can you just share a bit more about the show and give the audience an idea of what kind of exhibitor options you might have?
Yeah, absolutely. So Speciality and Fine Food Fair is located in London Olympia, so quite central, sort of West Kensington area. It takes place on the 5th and 6th of September, so it's a Monday and Tuesday. Historically, it used to run for 3 days on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, but very much from the guidance of exhibitors and buyers that we felt that the Sunday wasn't needed so much anymore. It used to be all of the independents that came on a Sunday when Sunday trading was quite restricted, but obviously in our modern day world, that's not quite the case. So it runs on Monday and Tuesday. And we get around about 600 food and drink producers that exhibit at the fair. And historically, we get between sort of 9,000 and 10,000 visitors that come to the fair. Now, it's a trade-only event, so it's not open to the general public. So the audience that are coming are typically buyers from the retail, hospitality and food service sector, and our wholesalers and distributors that are coming in. It's quite a good split between them all. And all of these buyers are looking to source sort of your premium and artisanal speciality and fine food that will go into their outlets. So if you're looking to, position yourself, you think of it as in a supermarket, and you would be one of those premium products, then Speciality and Fine Food Fair would be the right sort of show for you. The show is split into sort of 2 levels. We have our ground floor, and then it goes up onto the gallery level, and there are a huge range of different stand options available. So we go anywhere from a 3 square meter stand up to bigger stands, 30, 40 square meters, which some of our more established producers will take. We also have a few little zones within there, but one of our most exciting zones is our discovery zone. And this is an area for our exhibitors that have been trading for 3 years or less. It used to be 2 years or less, but I think with COVID being such a year that's taken away from us, we increased that to 3 years to give everyone a bit more of a chance. And we have producers in there that stands in there that start from 2 square meters, and they're small packages that are just under £1,000, so they're £996. They're probably a little bit more than when Sanjay did it back in the day, I think maybe 2016 or so when he first joined us. So, but they're a really good affordable option as an entry into the fair. We let exhibitors do it for up to 2 years, and then we ask them to move on to a larger stand. They're only limited in the fair. We as a company actually don't make much money from them at all. So I'm restricted in what my finance director will let me put in there. I'd fill the fair with them if I could. They're brilliant little stands. But yeah, they're limited in there. They're great. They go like hotcakes, and it's a real sort of Aladdin's cave of discovery for the buyers coming in. They're always super popular. The traffic flow is brilliant up there anyway, but yeah, they're a real draw for the buyers coming in.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. Every time I go every year to Specialty and have done for 8 or 9 years, pandemic permitting, and that's the area I go to immediately. It's a great, really buzzy area, and really fantastic producers in there. So Perfect, great. And then Sanjay, so I know, how many times have you exhibited at Specialty? I remember seeing you and your mum there at least once.
Yeah, so we launched there. Actually, that was our first trade show back in 2016. Actually,
okay.
So yeah, so there we go. I think we booked a few shows. Speciality being the first ever trade show we did in 2016, but we actually booked a few. And interestingly, we haven't done loads of Speciality because part of what I was going to say was you need to find the right shows that are the right fit for your business. We're very much a gifting brand, and after doing Speciality and then doing some of the other ones like Top Drawer, Home and Gift, where there are food gifting brands, and other ones like Autumn and Spring Fair, we quite quickly realized that the farm shop type market is there for us, but actually it's the department store and the gift buyers that we're more suited to. But it's a great show, exactly like you said. The Discovery Zone is where we were, definitely gave us the confidence to kind of do more trade, and it wasn't expensive when we did it. But part of all of these things is really finding your feet and working out what shows will work for you and what won't. And interestingly, I will go back to Speciality because we're launching a range of products which are now more suited to that market. But yeah, no, we did it. I think we've done it a couple of times, and I've certainly encouraged a lot of brands to go do it. One thing that's actually interesting about Speciality, you mentioned about Discovery Zone, quite a lot of the shows, they do have little areas for startups. And I think some of the other shows, they're kind of more perceived, probably buyers kind of shy away from them a little bit because they're thinking, well, these guys are the new brands. They're kind of maybe not so established. We'll wait till they get a proper stand. Speciality is one of the few shows where I think the Discovery is the opposite. And I think, as you've said, a lot of brands, a lot of companies do go there looking for new. There's less of a risk possibly with food as well. And it's kind of more encouraged. It's kind of a proper section of the business as opposed to putting all the new starters in the corner, kind of the area of the stand or logistically where maybe it's not as much footfall. It's more championed at Speciality. So I definitely say that's a positive thing from the organisers.
Yeah, great. And you know, given that was your first ever trade show, which for you was kind of the biggest lesson? We'll come on to more of your lessons later, but what for you was the biggest lesson that you took from that? It's a big learning curve going straight to that big show.
Sort of, yeah. I think the biggest lesson for us is we knew in 2016 or 2015 that we needed to go wholesale. We had built the business up online. Obviously, Yumbos was probably one of our first platforms we launched on. We were approached by actually the Mid-Counties Co-op that year, and we were very excited. And we said, oh my God, yeah, we definitely want our products there. But we quickly realized we didn't have barcodes, we weren't retail ready, we didn't have food safety, we didn't have anything basically. So we got excited, but then quickly realized sadly we had to say no because we just weren't retail ready. But we got retail ready then over the course of the year, and we then launched and it was all fine. What I would say is you've definitely got to be prepped for wholesale. Therefore, you've got to get your products retail ready. You've got to show that you know your margins. You've got to have line sheets and order forms and all the rest of it, which becomes second nature. But I would definitely say you've got to get your basics right. The second thing I think you've got to do is we booked, actually, I knew that having spoke to other people and maybe being a bit more a risk taker, I needed to book a few shows just in order to find our feet, because we didn't really know what products would sell. And you know, we knew we were going to make a few mistakes, but we also didn't know which the right show was. A lot of people, when they're doing shows, a lot of people ask me, oh, is that show good? Is that show good? And sometimes I kind of say, well, it is good for us, but you need to go find out whether it's good for you. And it's very easy because people are generally, you know, maybe a bit risk averse, and they are expensive, especially when you're starting out. But really, you never know until you try. And you've got to make an educated guess as to which one you think that show would be. But you've just got to go do it, throw yourself in, and then only then will you realize. And it doesn't really matter whether we do well at it. You'll only know if you do well if you do it yourself. And so you need to try a few different shows as well. Speciality is great for what it does, and then there's obviously other shows which are good for gifting, and there's other shows which are good for garden centers. So if you start to paint a picture of who that ideal retailer is, then you could potentially pick the right show for you.
Yeah. Okay, great tip there. And Sanjay, sticking with you for a minute, I know you're a really good proponent of prep, and you kind of alluded to some of that there already. What for you are some key things to do? Well, we'll come later on to choosing the right trade show for you, which you mentioned, but once you picked, you know, a trade show that you want to invest in, what for you are some kind of must-have things you should do before the show?
I think the purpose of going to a trade show is to take orders. I don't think anybody should forget that. And I think a lot of brands go to shows, and we did in the early days of going there to kind of meet the buyers, do a lot of research, and kind of gain some interest and do brand awareness. I think you're missing the point. The first ultimate goal is to take orders from retailers, and therefore you need to take whatever you need to take with you, and you need to be ready to take those orders. So you definitely need a wholesale brochure. You definitely need to get your pricing. and you need to know what the wholesale pricing is. So a farm shop would want 35, 40%, a gifting retailer may want 50%. You need to know those numbers in advance. You need to know what products you're going to take and what your best sellers are, because you can take 50 products with you, but the first question every retailer is going to ask is which are your best top 5 sellers. I'll start with that. So know what your best sellers are. Create things like starter orders to make buyer indecision a lot less. Again, if you take lots of products and try and take orders for across the range, it's better to take a small order of £200 with 3 of your best sellers to get it on the shelf at the show than to try and hold out for an order, which a maybe order 500 quid, 6 months down the line. So definitely need line sheets. You should take samples with you, and I think sampling is a good thing. It doesn't need to be an expensive sample, but I think buyers do like that sort of thing. You definitely need to be ready to record the retailer's kind of details down, be it with one of these scanners or an old school business card folder or stapler or whatever you need to record those. And a lot of the work is done prepping for the show. You've got to do the show and get all the leads you can and qualify your customers to make sure you're not wasting time with people who aren't buyers. And then you've got to follow the leads afterwards, because try and take as many orders as you can at the show. Maybe that's 20% of the people you meet. And then the 80%, that's where the real work's done, is after the show, making sure you're constantly chasing those leads and the right leads. And again, if you spend 3 times on the phone with somebody and they can say, yeah, I'm interested, but really they're not, then maybe they're wasting your time. And I think you should really be careful of eliminating anybody who is wasting your time, because everyone's time poor.
Okay, and so you mentioned there, obviously the objective really should be about securing orders, but do you actually secure orders at the show, or really is it hot leads that you then follow up on?
Maybe I'm a bit different here, but I'm all about orders personally.
Right.
I'm always about trying to close every sale and get the order
at the show. Yeah.
At the show.
Yeah. Whether it's a starter order that you say, kind of a, yeah. Okay.
Anything, yeah, because it's a lot harder to get orders after the show than it is at the show. So I'd rather take a £200 starter order, carriage paid order at the show than hold out for something a lot bigger later on, because those later ones rarely happen sometimes. And buyers quickly forget who you are. So
and do you make that starter order almost like a show special, like you'll only get this? Do you do anything like that, or it's just a standard, I have a starter order?
We have done stuff like that before, and we've done discounted at the orders at the shows as well. But one big thing that we do is sale or return. So that's our biggest hook generally. And that normally gives buyers the confidence now just to order anyway.
Right. Great.
But I've got a small, we give free POS and everything. I wouldn't say it's necessarily exclusive to the shows, to be honest with you, anymore, but it's a big enough hook to kind of get them to buy there and then.
Yeah. And Nicola, from your point of view, I mean, obviously you've seen scores of producers attending your shows for years now, and I'm sure you've seen all sorts. When it comes to at the show, what for you are some of the best examples of kind of manning the stand and converting those leads that you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think echoing what Sanjay says, having the preparation before, but when you're on the stand itself, it's to be active. I've seen people in the past sit behind their phones on a stand and then tell me after that they haven't had any orders. So it goes hand in hand. This is your shop window. So this is your opportunity to meet as many of those buyers that are coming past, be enthusiastic, share your story, the passion and your brand is the thing that you're there to sell, and get your product tasted by these, fantastic buyers that are coming by. So you need to be up on your feet, enthusiastic, dress your stand according to, how you want to represent your brand. It doesn't need to be expensive. You can think creatively. I saw exhibitors do all sorts in the past. There was a company once that all of their branding was bright pink and bright yellow. So she just bought reels of ribbon and just hung ribbon all around, and it looked fantastic, and it catches people's eyes. There's lots of different cost-effective ways of being able to dress your stand and represent who you are. But yeah, be up on your feet and just be enthusiastic and have fun. It's 2 days there where you are. It's not just about networking and meeting the buyers, but also all of these other brilliant stands and companies that are around you that you can learn from, network with, collaborate with. We've seen companies in the past join forces where a chocolate company and a chili company have become a chocolate chili, and it's a great platform to learn and also connect with these buyers coming in.
That's a great point, Sanjay. Have you found that at trade shows? You're a professional networker anyway, but have you found it really useful for kind of meeting other producers and forming new contacts that way as well?
Oh my God, I think that's one of the biggest advantages. It's one of the big reasons I do it, actually. I mean, we
Right.
do a lot of partnerships anyway with chefs and restaurants and stuff. But yeah, we've done loads of mad popcorn stuff, chocolate stuff. We work with a few chocolate brands. Yeah, loads of stuff like that. I think you can learn a lot as well. Like, I obviously talked to a lot of smaller producers, and I was small one day and talked to bigger producers and bigger companies. So it's just a general business thing, because it's good to learn from those, especially when you're doing your first shows. You gain, you know, if I could meet someone like me with my experience back in the day and get some advice, you get there a lot quicker. But yeah, oh my God, it's like the networking side is incredible. I've just been to Brussels, actually, to a bigger kind of trade show there with bigger UK businesses, and some of them have crowdfunded. You know, they're 4, 5, 6 million turnover, and I haven't really hung out with those sort of size businesses before. Some of them have been raised investment, other guys are really aggressive, some of it's been on Dragon's Den, and just learning all of those things, you know, gaining investment. And I've never even like spoke to any brands like that. Just learning that, even whether I'm not going to go down that route or not, is invaluable, actually.
Yeah.
Because when that day comes, then I'm like, okay, I understand how it works, and seed funding and all the rest of it. But yeah, oh my God, there's so much to learn. And I actually learn from organisers and learning from the shows, to also just to even gain, like, as Nicola said about stand dressing, you sometimes go a bit over the top when you first start, and you realise somebody's just bought like a 20 quid thing from IKEA and it looks amazing. So you sometimes make it a lot more simple. We spent hours building this wooden stand out of like DIY thing. It took me like 3 hours back in the day, and now I've got like a wheelie IKEA thing that just goes straight into my van. It takes 2 seconds. I'm the first one out the shows, and it looks a lot better now than it ever has. So so yeah, I don't know. I think sampling's a little bit. When we were younger, in fact, only now, probably after, God, 6, 7 years, are we thinking about sampling in a bigger way. And you tend to find that, don't you? You see some of the bigger brands giving out like popcorn, like it's like, you know, popcorn brands giving out hundreds and hundreds of packets. In fact, the stand's full of it. But it's certainly, in the early days, you're thinking, I don't want to give away those samples. They're costing me a lot of money. I've already spent enough money on this show. I'm not going to give away stuff. But I think you've got to probably think a little bit more about those costs. I wish I could have done back in the day and spent more time doing more sampling and maybe spending money on lighting and just little things to make the stand look better, and to also give yourself the best chance of securing that little retailer. We started giving little bit of gin and nuts to some of our key accounts, actually, and the amount of feedback and orders we got from that was really good, reorders, because back on the, you know, when they were going back on the train from a show, they were drinking their nuts, gin and having nuts and stuff, and it was quite a nice little touch. And I wish we had done more of those little touches back in the day for a bit more thoughtful.
Yeah, just something to stand out and be memorable as they're leaving the show. Yeah, that's a great. And how about like any tips and techniques, like as people are approaching your stand, you know, things that you found work well in terms of engaging with the buyers, because, you know, often that's the challenge, right, of producers. It's a sales job on the day, and that might not be your lane. So what are some techniques, you know, that you've learned that work well?
Oh, there's lots. I mean, luckily, I've come from a recruitment sales background. I've had professional sales training, which has really served me well running a food business, which is ultimately your selling is the key thing. I think the first thing is we bring all our stuff right to the front of the stand. So we've always got stuff right on the front, and we sell from the front of the stand. What I mean by is a lot of producers put stuff quite far back and they're standing in front. So don't block your products, stand by the side of it. I think you've also got to remember that everybody walking past could be a sale. And I think 50% of our sales come from approaching people as opposed to being approached. I mean, for us, nobody's coming to buy a silk sari wrapped spice box. Like, it's just not on their agenda. Whereas maybe some farm shops are looking to buy chocolate or confectionery or jam. So people have got more of a standing start. But for us, a lot of our sales come from approaching people and saying, oh, you know, what sort of shop are you? So we're qualifying quite quickly. Qualifying is key, right? So what I mean by qualifying is you're trying to work out if this is a real buyer or not. You know, no disrespect to Speciality, but you probably, it's one of those shows where you do probably get a lot of people trying to sell to you, be it packaging or photography or even people from the wider industry, be it food service. If you're not selling to food service and you get somebody who's a chef, are you wasting your time a little bit? So you've got to qualify your customers. Otherwise, you can, in the early days, spend a lot of time telling somebody about your product, and an actual buyer could be walking past. Yeah. So qualifying is really, really important. Making sure you're front, as you say, positive and always engaging those customers. I think the other really important thing to do is to not over talk, not tell them too much, but ask questions, find out, are they selling gifts? Are they interested in these products? Is it the sort of thing that they sell in their area? Do they like the taste of it? are the customers buying this category? You know, actually, it should be a two-way dialogue, not just going full into, this is my brand, this is what we do, this is why I care about the environment, not doing your sales pitch. Yeah, I think you've got to, what's called, mirror the customer and find out a bit more information about them and then sell them back almost what they're interested in. It becomes with time. One of the biggest things also I would say is you've got to have confidence in your own product. And it comes with time, but it also comes with just general confidence. So if a retailer asks you what your best sellers, you should quite quickly know what that is. And often I do a technique where we've got a product line that isn't selling very well. And by telling the retailer that it isn't doing very well, and I'm not going to sell you the baby spice line because we're still finding our feet with that, but actually the Indian tin sells really well, they're more likely to believe you that the Indian tin sells well because you're not selling them everything. So sometimes it's about being really, really open and honest with the retailer, telling them what's relevant, and then being quite, I would say, closing the sale. And what I mean by that is you're just trying to ask them, will they order? And it's quite a hard thing to do if you're not naturally a salesperson, but saying, hey, listen, we've talked about this. If we don't try, we never know. It's sale or return. How about you take a small 200 quid order? If it doesn't sell, send them back to me. How about that?
Yeah.
And 50-60% of the time, they'll just say yes. And you're like, oh, I like that. I'll do it again.
Yeah.
And you do it again and again and again. So it's just about confidence and seeing what works. And with all marketing and sales, try it. If it works, fine. If it doesn't work, scrap it. But actually, if it does work, then double down on it and do it twice as much. And yeah, there's nothing like closing sales. So
Also on that point, like Sanjay said, is if you've got a team working with you as well on site that you don't maybe normally work with, but you've hired them in or whatever to help you with the sales, you know, just make sure they're on the same page as you as well, that you've all got the same passion for the product, and that comes through because they're acting on behalf of your brand. So you want to make sure that they're educated in, you know, all the knowledge that you have as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so generally, like Sanjay, if you ever use people that, you know, aren't day to day with your business, and do you kind of tell them when it looks like the buyer is really interested, pass them over to me or something like that? Do you kind of do that?
I've probably done that more with my mum than I have with external people, actually. As soon as you start talking numbers, my mum's looking a bit glazed. I'll say, oh, mum, just pass them over. So me and mum had a very good working relationship. So she might come back to a show this year. I'm honest with you, I've never sent anyone on a trade show without me being there, actually, to date. That obviously has to change based on how many we're doing. I have definitely hired people in, but I would train them properly on the day or at the show. And I've done them for consumer shows, but not trade shows so much. But yeah, very much, you know, if I've got the person who's just starting out and they know the product information, but they don't know all the numbers and sale or return and all the kind of normal terminology that retailers may ask, then I'd definitely say pass them over to me. But to be honest with you, I'm always of the ilk that if the person can be fully empowered to do the whole sale, it's better to kind of test that out first so that they can do the full sale from start to finish and you can work on another customer, because it does get a little bit tricky if you're passing a customer over. Because if I'm talking to somebody and then they're near the close of a sale, then how do you swap? It's not that simple. So I'm always of the ilk to empower the individual if possible. We generally say with trade shows, I don't know, younger people who aren't cooks and in foodies and everything, you may struggle a little bit. Whereas if you've got somebody older and more mature and more experienced with sales and food, it's always going to serve you better. But that's not always easier to find. So great point. So we'll take questions in a minute. Anyone watching live, feel free to post some questions. Before we do then, so obviously, you know, post show, hopefully you've got, you know, a good list of leads, hopefully secured even some orders. What for each of you, starting with you, Sanjay, are some kind of key techniques that you've used to really kind of make sure you follow up and convert? What are kind of some must-dos on that? 100% you need a CRM. You know, we started with spreadsheets, but there's no real point of spreadsheets anymore because you can get like free CRM systems now. You probably can name more than me, Katie. We use Pipedrive, which is about 30 quid a month per person, which is quite cheap. And I know people use Capsule and a few others. So a CRM system basically is an advanced spreadsheet. It allows you to log all of your customers, put them in lists. It logs every single phone call that you've done, or you should do that. And it actually sometimes syncs with our email account. So if we email a trade customer, it automatically recognizes that and saves it. So it makes everything a lot cleaner. The other thing that we do is a lot of email marketing. So we'll take all of those email addresses, stick them into Klaviyo or MailChimp or whatever, and just do regular emails, because even if the buyers aren't buying, then at least they're your front of center of the brand. And then
keep top of mind.
And then you need to really qualify. So everybody's got limited time. You know, we've probably got 2,000 or 3,000 leads on the system now from all the years. But of those leads, we've qualified them. So we know of those leads, we want to focus on calling these top 200, which we've identified are food buyers, are shops that would stock our product, are maybe more affluent areas to buy 30 quid product, and then another thing we do is on the emails, you can actually see these days, it's quite clever. You couldn't in the back who's opened or clicked on the email. And we find that's quite a good technique to see who's engaging with our brand. So we take that data, cross-reference it on our CRM system, and then use that as a list really. And then more often than not, they're like, oh, I just was looking at your email the other day. You're like, oh, no shit, because we saw that. So we focus in on that a little bit more. But yeah, anything tactical you can do to filter your list, to focus on the people who are the most chance of ordering down to the least chance, just saves you just calling willy-nilly through a list. And really, honestly, over time, you start killing off some of these contacts, because lots of people will say, oh yeah, we'll buy. Oh yeah. But we're like, so where's the order then? And if they have an order after 3, then sack them off. And what happens more often than not, you sack them off, and then 4 or 5 years later, they'll come see you again, and then they may buy. But actually, you haven't wasted your time for 2 years trying to chase somebody who really isn't very interested. But yeah, CRM is key, and then chasing those leads and being front of center. And I think it's a mix of activity. I know sometimes we've been on Instagram, we'll follow a shop, we'll comment on their posts, and we'll kind of keep warm with them on Instagram. Sometimes we'll do it on email. Sometimes we'll do it with newsletters. Sometimes we'll do it with sending them samples. Like if it's a big buyer, we'll try and send that person a sample every 3 months or something. But yeah, you've just got to work out and qualify those customers and put them in different cycles, sales cycles.
Yeah, makes sense. Great points. And Nicola, from your point of view, have you come across any great methods that people use post-show? You probably don't have much visibility on that, but
yeah, not so much. I mean, from what obviously people tell us, but I agree with Sanjay. Like, if you've got that CRM, that's the best way to do it. You know, keep in touch with people. Don't be disheartened if it is a no for now. Like, it's also about building relationships, and an order right away doesn't mean it's never going to be an order. So, you know, it's keeping those people on your CRM. And although, you know, you've got your hot leads at the top and not so at the bottom, but, you know, newsletters and sharing stories about what you're doing as well. So, you know, after the show, share about, you know, did you donate stuff to the food bank, pictures of you on the stand, connections that you made. So lots of sharing and keeping yourself forefront in those minds is key as well. But yeah, I mean, follow up is paramount. Like, you must be followed. Otherwise, what happened at the show is just a waste of time. So you know, most exhibitors now will get and organisers will supply them with a data scanner as one way to collect leads. But you know, if you're not comfortable with using that technology, then the good old-fashioned, you know, business card in your folder just to collect the leads, or write them in a book is a key way to do it.
Yeah, Specialty, you do the scanners, don't you? I remember you.
Yeah.
Quite a while. Perfect, great. So I'm just conscious of time then. So final questions. Nicola, obviously, you know, a trade show is a big investment in terms of the time and to some extent the stands, although you've got, as you mentioned, more cost-effective stands for the newer producers. What would you say then, for anyone who's never exhibited at Specialty before, what would you say is kind of the best fit profile of producer that, and it's hard to say, and you're kind of catering to a few different, but given the audience and given the successes that you've seen, what do you think is kind of, the ideal profile of producer to exhibit at Specialty?
I mean, we're very lucky in the specialty and fine food market that we get brands that are just starting out, which is why we have the discovery zone. So you could be new coming to market and it's you know, your first launch into a trade show, up to your more established brands, for example, Sanjay or Joe and Seth's, the Fine Cheese Company. So those sort of bigger, more established companies, distributors that we get, and wholesalers that exhibit with us as well. But I mean, you just have to look back and say, we always try and qualify companies that come to us and say, what is it that you're looking for? Who are you looking to target? And does our visitor demographic match that? So that we don't want you to come to an exhibition and spend your money, because they are, you know, they can add up, and it not be the right fit for you. So we will always want to have a good conversation to make sure that, you know, what you're looking to achieve, you could achieve by coming to Speciality and Fine Food Fair. So, you know, we have exhibitors from sort of the very small up to sort of the larger, but if you're looking to be a specialty and fine food product within a retail or a food service space, then Speciality is a good show for you to do.
Yeah, okay, perfect. And if someone was interested in specialty, what is the process? They go to your site, they submit a form, and then they make contact with you and you kind of talk them through.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a form online. So Speciality and Fine Food Fairs, there's a form you can submit or drop me an email. My details are on there as well. But yeah, and then once you've reached out, then we'll talk to you and chat through the different options and find out about what your objectives are, etc. And our show as well is not just about the show, those 2 days at the event. We want to know everything that you're doing, all the great stories that we can share as well. We've got an in-house PR team, we've got a huge social platform. So anything that we can do to help promote you as well, we're all for that. So it's about getting you as much exposure as we possibly can.
Yeah, great, perfect. And Sanjay, lastly, question to you. Obviously, you have now had many years trade show experience. You've tried very different trade shows, and you kind of alluded to it earlier. How do you pick one? Like, what's the key things that you look at to consider which one to go for?
It's a good question. I guess, yeah, it's on previous successes, really. It's definitely obviously understanding the show a little bit better and understanding which is the demographic that's going there that we may be targeting. I guess it's just experience, really. And I think we're a bit more open to risk as well now. Earlier when you first start doing trade shows, you're quite short term. You finish the trade show, you think, okay, how many orders have I got? How many are likely to convert? Have I made my money back? And it's all very much like, is this show worth it based on the 1 day or 2 days that you were there? Over time, it completely changes. And I would say it's much more beneficial to have a long-term approach. Some of the retailers we win now, we've been chasing for 4 or 5 years. I hate to say it's a bit depressing, but I've just won a cook shop last week at a show in London. I've been chasing them for 5 years. They've got 4 cook shops and they could be quite a good account for us, but it's taken that long. And I've had a very frosty buyer as well, who just wasn't interested in us. And suddenly she's really interested. And I don't know why she's suddenly interested last week more than anything else. Possibly
the Sanjay charm eventually got
Sanjay charm. Charm stroke pestering stroke like leave me alone type approach. Yeah, but I finally got her. But yeah, you've really got to take a long-term approach, and I think it will serve you really, really well. And again, you see a lot of I did it as well. At your first shows, you're kind of breaking it down in your head. I think if you've got the mindset that actually you realize you only need a couple of orders, and you then need those orders to repeat a few times, and if repeated over the course of a year, you pretty much broken even. So you only need a couple of sales, actually. As I say, get the starter order out, get them selling off the shelf, and then build that relationship with the retailer. And you could become quite a prime brand that they represent. It's really as simple as that. You don't need a lot of people to sell to, and you only need a few orders, and you can turn it into something good, great. So, and over time as well, it doesn't really matter how many sales you get, because we do all our account management at the shows as well. So we're saving time and money in a way by going to the show, because we meet 20, 30, sometimes retailers who are already buying from us, we place their reorders, they know we're there in the same location at the shows, and we pretty much bank that we're going to get 30, 40 orders now at a show from existing retailers alongside winning the new ones. So it becomes like less risky over time, which is a lovely thing to say. Whereas in the old days, it feels like you makes or breaks your company, because you're spending, we probably spent 10 grand in the early days on 5 shows over the course of a year, and it's a hell of a lot of money. In fact, it's pretty much all the money we had possibly just to do it, and they had to work, otherwise we're stuffed. So yeah, it becomes less risky all the time, but it's about having that long-term approach. And as we've said, CRM, chase the leads, build the relationships, tell your retailers then that you're coming back to the show and come place the order with us, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, great tips there. So we've had a question come in. It says, hi Sanjay, when you take orders at trade shows, do you take payment there, or do you invoice after the show?
No, we never take payment at the show with a card reader or anything. I just think it's a bit like, you could do, but it's not really that professional. We definitely send a pro forma invoice, which means obviously you're going to get payment straight away. Probably a few years ago, we used to wait for the payment to come in, but it requires somebody to then check the payments come in and send the order. We're a bit more risk taking now, so we send a pro forma invoice, but we send the order at the same time. Ultimately, the retailer is more likely to pay if the stock lands. They know they've got an invoice outstanding, but they're less likely to pay, more likely to cancel actually if you don't send the stock and they're constantly chasing money. Then it just feels a bit like, I haven't received any stock and you're asking me to pay. So over the last 5 years, we've had one retailer who's gone bust. We've lost like £300, and that's it. We've luckily escaped. We've had no other bad debt at all with wholesale. So So I would say it's a risk worth taking, and it's much better for that stock to leave the business. And what we do now is I'll do the orders in the evening on the Monday night of the Tuesday show, and we'll even send the order out on Monday so it arrives on Tuesday. So sometimes the stock beats the retailer back to their shop because they're in the shop for a couple of days, and we just look good. You know, it just makes it look good. We give them a free chocolate bar, and we do
great first impressions.
Touches, and the retailers then just more likely to pay. I mean, ultimately we don't give them a reason not to pay. And we'll obviously chase their ass down if they don't. So
yeah, great tip. And then the other question is, does your brochure include T's and C's, or again, do you send that later?
No, it's in everything's there. Everything's in the brochure. T's and C's, seller return offer, everything the customer needs to make an order is in the brochure, and it's emailed, and it's given them physically as well. We give a physical copy, maybe with a little free sample of some spice so it smells as they're going home. But yeah, we give them everything they need now in order to place the order. So yeah.
Okay, perfect, great. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much to both Nicola from Specialty and Fine Food Fair and Sanjay from Spice Kitchen. Thank you for sharing your experience and insights today. And I really hope everyone watching this live or on demand later has really picked up some great insights and actionable tips from both of you, I'm sure. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks,
See you later.